Welcome back to the channel, Our Glass of Wine. I am Jacqueline, and today we are going to take a little field trip to France and the southern Rhône, to a very special part of it, more specifically, Châteauneuf-du-Pape. But we're not going to talk about it for its Provençal atmosphere. We want to learn about wine. So let's take a deep dive into the Châteauneuf-du-Pape wine, including a tasting at the end. Let's look at a map, the geography. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is located in the wine-growing area known as the Southern Rhône in the south of France, in an area known as Provence. To the north, we find Orange, with stunning Roman ruins, and to the south, we find Avignon, which we will get to in a minute. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is on the western side of the Rhône River, covering over 3,200 hectares of land. The wine, as in much of Europe, is named for a town, Châteauneuf-du-Pape. The wine can be made from grapes coming from Châteauneuf-du-Pape and 4 other villages surrounding it: Bédérède, Courtezan, Orange, and Sorgue. Time for a history lesson. The name Châteauneuf-du-Pape comes from the history of the place and the area. Avignon, to the south, briefly became the seat of the Catholic Church in the 1300s when the papacy was transferred to Avignon from Rome. There were a few popes that were stationed, so to speak, in Avignon, and even after the seat of the church was eventually moved back to Rome later on, a few anti-popes still reigned from Avignon, defying the Roman popes. The Avignon popes built a stunning Gothic fortress in Avignon, the Palais des Papes, and it's worth a visit in its own right. But it was Pope John XII that built a little country castle for a summer house, a few kilometers to the north of Avignon. Now just ruins, the Châteauneuf, or New Castle, des Papes, of the popes, stands above the village of Châteauneuf-du-Pape as a testament to the power that was once here. Vines were already in existence in the area, and with new ones being planted, wines from this area became common to be served at dinners in the castle, and they were often given the name Vin du Pape. And of course, like with most transfers of power, after the popes were officially moved back to Rome and the anti-popes lost power, the castle did fall into disuse and abandon. However, the wine tradition remained in the area. Pre-1900s, the wines were not considered with the prestige that they are today, and they were often sold off to Burgundy as kind of like flavor boosters. It was after World War I when farmers of the area decided to create a new set of rules in order to protect the Châteauneuf-du-Pape wine and quality. And this is when it really became to come into its own and become well known. Actually, this set of rules would come to form the foundation of the AOC regulations, or Appellation d'origine contrôlée, with Châteauneuf-du-Pape becoming one of the first AOC wines in France. The weather and the climate. When you visit the Southern Rhône, especially this area of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, one of the first things that you will notice is the heat and the sun. The area is hot, and there are lots of sunny days. This can pose problems for farmers and stress for the vines. However, there is a reason that wine has tradition here, and that is because Mother Nature does provide some moderating factors. Our first moderating factor is going to be the Mistral, a strong wind that comes down from the Alps. It picks up as it blows across the Rhône Valley, and it reaches incredible strengths and speeds when in this area. It can actually at times be strong enough to knock a person down. While this does provide its own set of problems, we can't have winds taking out vines now, can we? But it has proven overall to be more boon than problem. First, let's talk about the benefits. The winds create a cooling effect, and this keeps the hot temperatures regulated. It also keeps things well aerated, meaning that paired with a relatively low seasonal rainfall, this area is not prone to fungus. And so we see a lot of organic farming taking place here. Now, in order to combat these strong winds, you often will see vines planted at an angle, meaning that farmers will literally plant their vines not straight, knowing that the winds will actually train them and push them upright. We also see a lot of head-trained vines that are relatively low to the ground, and we can see how the Mistral could be part of the reason for that training system. From the ground up, the soils. No discussion of Châteauneuf-du-Pape is complete without talking about their iconic Galets Roulés, or the round stones that cover the vineyard floors. While this is a diverse area in terms of soils, we see sand, limestone, and clay throughout the region. It's these soils formed by these Galets Roulés rocks that are certainly the most famous. The galets are actually traces of a once glacial nature that came to this area. As an ancient glacier receded, large boulders were left behind. When the Rhône River, once much more wide than it is now, would flow through the area, it tumbled the rocks, giving them this riverbed feel. The Rhône receded and left behind the stones, tumbled now down to a smooth roundness by time and the water. So what we see is essentially actually an ancient dry riverbed. And besides being very picturesque, these galets actually hold a key to the overall terroir of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. The sun bakes the stones, heating them up. When in the evening the sun goes down and temperatures drop, the stones will continue to give off heat, keeping the vines from freezing in winter months, and in summer months helping to keep more stable temperatures for the optimal maturation of the grapes. Grapes of the Southern Rhône. There are a lot of grapes in the Southern Rhône, and 13 of them are usually used in Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines. While some are more planted and common than others, there are wineries out there that will use all 13. For our red grapes, we are going to find Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, Cinsault, Muscardine, Cornoise, Vaccarès, and Terroir. The most common of these are going to be the GSM grapes, Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. For our white grapes, we see Grenache Blanc, Claret, Bourboulaq, Roussanne, Picpoul, Picardine. Now, technically, everyone does say 13 grapes. This is because Grenache often gets counted as one grape, even though both the red and white types are allowed. We heard from a producer that so many grapes are allowed within these laws of Châteauneuf-du-Pape because the laws were originally written to help codify the Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines. So they took a survey of what grapes the producers were planting at that time in order to make sure that most of the grapes and wines were included. This way, producers did not have to end up ripping up grapes that they could not be used in the appellation or be forced to undergo time-consuming and expensive tasks of replanting. They could use the grapes they had. After all, these were the grapes traditional to the area. As time went on, some varieties fell out of favor and others grew to be the top, which is now why we see a predominance of the GSM grapes, where in the past that might not have necessarily been the case. Now, another interesting factoid that we picked up by talking to another winemaker in Châteauneuf-du-Pape was that some of these grapes are easily identifiable in the vineyard, and this is thanks to that training style. As we mentioned, the Mistral winds are a big factor here. So, in this one producer's view, that was why Grenache, which prefers to be head-trained, became the most popular. The head-trained vines stood up to the wind better. However, other grapes like Syrah that need to have trellising or gouillotte cordon styles of training require more work to tend them. So in his thoughts, that was why Grenache over time has become the most popular. The denomination and the wines. Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines can come in either red or white colors, with the red taking a vast majority of the production. In some counts, close to 95% of Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines are red. An important aspect of the Châteauneuf-du-Pape denomination is the freedom that is given to winemakers. They can choose the blend of grapes from a single variety to all of the grapes listed within the denomination. They can choose how they vinify them, together in a field blend or separately and blended later. They can choose how to age the grapes, stainless steel, oak, cement, and they can even choose for how long, from years to months. There is an insane amount of artistry involved in Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines. What producers are limited on, however, is more of a quality rather than a stylistic characteristic. The grapes must come from certain delineated areas. The harvest must be within a certain yield, often considered to be very low. the alcohol must be a minimum level. And while the producers can choose the overall blend of the wine, the grapes that they use in that blend must come from the law of the Châteauneuf AOC. But other than that, the winemaker is free to let their imagination take the reins and their own philosophies and their own expressions come out. This means that there's a lot of diversity in Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines. Besides vines growing in different soils and expositions, we can now factor in the human element and the artistry of the winemaker. There are, however, some classic things or characteristics that are common throughout the area. These are more like guidelines rather than rules. First up is blending. As mentioned, it's not a requirement. There are single variety Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines out there, but a large majority of Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines are going to be blends. As well, it's common to see a lot of stainless steel or concrete aging. This is because the most planted variety, Grenache, is super sensitive to oxidation and it doesn't particularly like oak aging. So for this reason too, we see a lot of different types of aging working into the blends as well. Perhaps in a single wine, we see a mix of oak-aged Syrah, concrete-aged Grenache, for example. And all of this blending helps producers be able to make balanced products in the hot and challenging climates. Different vineyards, different grapes, different vinification methods, different agings. All of this can help them add a little bit of fruit here, bump up a little bit of spice, smooth out some tannins. And overall, it allows them to create a balanced and delicious product. So lastly, let's talk some numbers. For the Châteauneuf-du-Pape denomination, we see just over 3,200 hectares grown, as of 2022 data that was provided to us by a winery owner. Of those 3,200 hectares, over 2,100 of them were red Grenache, making up 66% of the overall vineyard surface area. See, we told you Grenache was important in the area. And of course, we need to keep an eye out for this symbol associated with Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines. It is often embossed on the bottle, or you also may see it on the label. Time to taste a Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Theory is all well and good, but let's start to talk some practicalities, and let's discuss what a typical Châteauneuf-du-Pape is going to do in our glass. I have here a bottle of 2020 Château Fortia Châteauneuf-du-Pape that we picked up recently during a visit to the winery on our southern Rhône trip. So let's pop the cork and dive in. All right, let's pour ourselves a glass and see what we have. What a pretty color, first off. So, first of all, it is a gorgeous color. It is ruby red, and it's not terribly deep. It's a lighter ruby red, but absolutely gorgeous. It just shines in the glass. Now, this wine, I looked in my notes earlier. It is aged for 18 months in oak barrels. It is a GSM blend, 65% Grenache, 25% Syrah, and 10% Mourvèdre. And I kind of feel like you can see in the color especially that it's predominantly Grenache. On the nose as well, that kind of comes out, that red fruity characteristic. So on the nose, we've got, it's nice, intense. You can smell the alcohol. It's 15% alcohol, so hot climate, it's up there. But we get a fairly complex aroma profile here. Nice deep aromas of like spices. I get some cloves, some vanilla. I definitely get lots of fruit. It's predominantly fruity. And the fruits are jammy to me. There's kind of a undertone that is a hint of like a gamey type of meaty note. That could be the Syrah coming out, or the Mourvèdre too. There's also this hint of it's traditional in Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines. They say this hint of, it's called garrigue, and it's a blend of aromatic herbs that you often find in the vineyards. Things like rosemary, sage, and thyme. And I kind of feel like I'm getting a hint of that here, like this herbaceous, aromatic, herby quality. So it's really lovely. It's a wonderful wine to just smell, but we want to do more than that. wow. So it is round and full, very intense, quite persistent as well. It's a long finish. I'm really, even talking, I'm still tasting those flavors in there. Once again, I feel like it's very similar to the nose. I'm getting cherries, but here, rather than the jammy fruit and cherries that I got on the nose, I feel like liqueur cherries. So cherries like maybe that have been soaked in liqueur. There is a medicinal kind of quality. I want to say balsamic, like eucalyptus. I think this is where those herbs are coming back out. I feel the herbs even more on the palate than I do on the nose. I get that same kind of a hint of a savory, meaty note on the back palate as well. Lovely, really, really complex, really inviting. What I love the most is how balanced this is. The tannins are sandy. You can feel them, they're present, but they go away very quickly thanks to a lovely acidity. And all of that is balanced by this body. It'll go great with food in terms of with pairings. I think we have a lot of opportunities for all sorts of pairings here. The Southern Rhône and Châteauneuf-du-Pape wines are such an interesting slice of the wine world. If you really enjoyed this deep dive into Châteauneuf-du-Pape and the wine, please leave a like below and be sure to subscribe for more wine content like this. If you are interested in learning more about the Southern Rhône, a great way to do so is to travel to the place itself, like we did, and buy some wine for yourself as well. You should check out this video here for our travel planning tips to the Southern Rhône and Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Cheers!